Golgotha Motor Mountain, issue number 2 from IDW. So this is a very interesting series. Best way I can describe it is Breaking Bad meets Lovecraftian body horror. And yeah, I'm going to be going through issue number 2, but I will briefly run through issue number 1 just so you're kind of caught up on what's going on. So our two main characters are named Elwood and Vernon, and they are brothers. And they live in this town called Golgotha, which is basically kind of like a crap hole where no one wants to go. Like the air is polluted, the people are polluted, like everything's just kind of, it's like the worst of the worst. I'm kind of wondering because like Golgotha is the location where Jesus Christ was crucified. I'm wondering if that's going to play a part in some way. By that I mean I don't think Jesus is going to show up, obviously, but I wonder if like there's going to be some kind of weird message or like symbolism or anything with that. Anyways, our two brothers are meth cookers, I guess. They cook meth. They're basically like the two guys from Breaking Bad, and they want a better life. They want to. Their dream is to live in Cincinnati, and basically they are cooking some meth when a meteorite crashes through their house, and or I should say their meth lab, and starts burning most of their product. But they're able to save some of it, and then they decide, hey, like this meteorite, it's purple. It kind of looks like some of the stuff that we sell. So why don't we just break down these asteroids into smaller pieces and we'll sell it as meth? And so they go to this community, guess I can say, in the middle of the woods. That's basically like a bunch of former KKK members. And they're like, hey, we have this new meth. It's super like new and great, and we'll give it straight to you. Or like, you can buy it in bulk, so it's going to be like a great deal for you. And the guys are like, well, we don't know who you are. We've never seen you before, because they're wearing masks, but also the fact that they cook meth. They don't actually sell the meth. They have someone else sell the meth. But they figured, hey, if we get rid of the middleman and we sell this asteroid as meth and we just make a quick buck, we will have enough to get the hell out of here and go to Cincinnati and live the good life. So, yeah, that's why they're here. And so one of the members tells them, like, we'll buy it, but first we need you to test it. So he forces Vernon to basically try some of this meth. And so he tries some of it, and they're like, oh, okay, well, it looks good. So he sells it to them, and then he drives off. And as the brothers are driving away, the KKK members who took this meth, their body starts changing. Basically, during like narration, we're told that this isn't just like a regular meteorite, but it's actually the home of like this alien parasite. And what it does is it like goes into your body and it replicates your DNA, but it doesn't do like a 1-for-1 replication, because the way it replicates is like mashing and mixing up the DNA codes and stuff. So it kind of becomes like John Carpenter's A Thing, where people just start mutating these like weird, grotesque, Lovecraftian kind of creatures. That's how that issue ends. And this issue, we kind of get introduced to the main, I guess, antagonist, you can say. It's this sheriff who is obsessed with this spaghetti western that he watched as a kid called Pistolero. And I will say this, I feel like we spend way too much time on this Pistolero stuff. But basically, yeah, we just kind of go through Vernon having a weird drug trip where he sees demons and stuff. And he's also growing like this weird thing out of his forehead. And meanwhile, we see a deputy show up to the boys' meth lab where it's like kind of like destroyed. And he calls in the sheriff. And the sheriff, as I said, is this kid who was like obsessed with the Pistolero. And we get way too much information on the Pistolero, which is, I believe, a fake movie. I've never heard of it before. I googled it, nothing shows up. But yeah, basically they like kind of go over the premise of what the Pistolero is about, the story behind it, the main character, how the ending was shot in a way so that it was supposed to be that the main character becomes the antagonist, and it was like a political jab at the director's political rivals. But the Americans instead just saw it as over-the-top violence. And then how that story somehow led to the Giallo genre of films, which if anyone's not familiar with that, it's basically like the Italian slasher, which is kind of weird because giallo came out before spaghetti westerns, so obviously a spaghetti western didn't inspire giallo because giallo came out first in our real world, but maybe in this world it's different. I don't know. It spends way too much time on this movie, and it's supposed to kind of be like showing us how the fact that the sheriff who grew up with this as a kid, how it affected him in his life. And I feel like they went way too much with this when all it really does is it just shows that the sheriff is kind of a piece of shit. He basically has this dog who he threatens everybody with. He even threatens his deputy with it. He tells the deputy that I want you to lick my boots, and if you don't, I'm going to have the dog bite you. So the deputy like starts licking his boots, and then he kicks the deputy in the face and like breaks his nose. And the deputy starts bleeding everywhere. He's like, I bled on your boots. Let me clean it. So he starts licking his boots again. So yeah, it's just kind of showing that this is like a tough guy who believes he's like a cowboy. And he goes into the meth lab and he like sniffs, and I guess some of the asteroid stuff gets in him. I don't know. It's weird because like he sniffs it, but rather than having like a weird drug trip, instead he's able to figure out exactly what happened. Like he's able to know that something fell from the sky, it crashed through the meth kitchen, it caused an explosion. That the brothers put out the fire with well water. That they hauled the asteroid, which is actually part of a celestial body of an alien, onto their truck, took it to the KKK compound, sold it to them. They mutated. Like he's able to gather all this just from sniffing this thing. So that mean that the parasitic alien asteroid, whatever you want to call it, has like a hive mind. And so what one part of it sees in one location can share that with another part in another location. Because otherwise I have no idea how he's able to get all this information. But basically he forces the deputy to inhale this stuff. And the deputy starts having a weird trip. And he starts like mutating into this weird Lovecraftian creature. Meanwhile, the brothers are. It's kind of funny because Elwood basically notices that, hey, like, there's something weird growing out of your head. We got to take you to the hospital. And Vernon's like, nah, it's fine. Like, don't worry about this. This is nothing. It'll resolve itself like it always does. So, like, this brother has, like, something growing out of his head. And he's like, nah, it'll go away. Just forget about it. And instead, they decide we're going to sell more of this stuff. I have no idea how he's able to put this mask on when he has this, what looks like a horn growing out of his head, but he's able to fit a mask on. But yeah, he's going to be selling more of this stuff to more people. So you can kind of get the feeling that more people are going to be like turned into this weird Lovecraftian, John Carpenter's the thing, horror creature. And that's basically what the story has been so far. It's just the brothers find this weird comet, which actually turns out to be part of a parasitic alien. They make drugs out of it. They give the drugs to people, and the people who take the drugs start turning into weird body horror, Lovecraftian, John Carpenter's the thing, like creatures. And one of the brothers is infected. Meanwhile, there's a sheriff who's out of his freaking mind, trying to track them down. Yeah, it's interesting. I will say that I think the second issue is a lot weaker than the first. First one was a lot better, in my opinion. Second one, I feel like they went way too far in the metaphor and the analogy between the pistolero character and the sheriff and stuff. And it's just all that really boils down to is the sheriff is crazy and thinks he's a cowboy. But we have like half an issue describing this freaking movie and the themes behind it and all this stuff. And yeah, there's probably some stuff that I'm missing or I'm just kind of glossing over. But overall, it doesn't really matter. It feels more like you're trying to. I don't want to say it becomes across pretentious, but it feels like you're trying to give more of a message to something that doesn't really need that much of a message. Like, okay, we have a guy who watched the spaghetti western as a kid, became obsessed with it, and now models himself after the main character. That's all you really needed to tell us. You didn't need to go over all this stuff and the meaning and political messages behind it and all this stuff. Artwork itself is okay, though sometimes the characters, they're not consistent. Like sometimes the brothers you'll see them, they have like normal looking noses. Other times they have giant noses. Sometimes like just the shapes of some of the characters or just kind of off from panel to panel or page to page. But other than that, like it's interesting. I think the coloring is good, like especially like when we go into the whole like drug trippy stuff. Like it feels like a weird drug trip. Yeah, I don't really have too much complaints about the artwork. It's not the greatest thing I've ever seen, but it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's fine. Story itself, like I said, the dialogue is okay, though I feel like they're trying too hard to make the rednecks sound like rednecks to the point where it kind of becomes like a caricature of rednecks and not what rednecks actually sound like. And also just we get like narrative dialogue, but not from any of the characters. It just feels more like the writer is telling us like, hey, here's the history behind this town. Here's what this alien thing is. Here's what this Pistolero movie is about. So it's like the writer's like telling us directly, the reader, about this stuff. And I feel like there's too much of that. We can kind of see what's going on. Like you don't need to tell us everything. It feels like an exposition dump that doesn't need to be done because this is a visual medium. And like you don't need to go over the history of this town and how terrible it is. We can see it just from the panels. Like I can already tell that this is basically like where drug addicts and former KKK members and just like the scourge of society live. I can gather that just by looking at the panels. You don't need to explain it to me. I guess a little bit of the alien stuff is fine, but I feel like you're giving us too much. Like I can see what's going on with these people. Same thing with the Pistolero. Like you don't need to explain this entire fictional movie to me. I can kind of gather how it affected this guy just by the way he acts. So there's a lot of, I don't want to say tell, don't show, because they are showing, but they're also telling us things that we can clearly see for ourselves. So I feel like the writer can really cut back on a lot of this stuff. Leave a lot of the storytelling to your artist. Like have faith that your artist is going to be able to convey what you want to convey. Obviously, don't leave it all up to the artist, but yeah, a lot of this stuff, like a lot of this exposition, can be cut out, in my opinion. But other than that, like I think this is interesting. Like I'm intrigued, and I'm going to keep reading it. Like it's got me that hooked, I guess you can say. Like I'm very interested to see where it's going, and it's very unique. It kind of feels like something I'd read out of like old school Vertigo or something. So yeah, if you want to see a Breaking Bad but with Lovecraftian body horror, this is a story to check out. You might find it interesting. So there you go. There's Golgotha Mountain, issue number 2 from IDW. I liked it. I thought it was very interesting. It has its flaws, but not enough for me to stop reading it. Like it has a very interesting premise. I kind of want to see a little bit more. I feel like issue 2 is a lot weaker than issue 1. Hopefully issue 3 will be better. But yeah, I'm very intrigued to see where this is going. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope to see you next time. Take care. Later. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, I still want to thank you for watching it this far, and I hope the next one is more to your liking. With that said, thank you once again, and I hope you guys and gals have a good one. Later.